Hi, everyone. Welcome to the QEEE framework presentation. Thank you for coming today, and I hope you learn a lot. So let's get started. So my name is Susan Gare, and I work for OTAN, which is the Outreach Technical Assistance Network. This is a federally funded grant that allows free professional development for adult school and non-credit community college teachers throughout the state of California. If you are in California and you are a community college or an adult ed agency, be sure to contact OTAN. So this EEE framework that I am presenting is actually a framework that was developed by somebody else named Liz Kolb, and she works in K-12. But because of the difference of K-12 and adult ed, a group of us who are all subject matter experts got together to transition this for adult education. And those people are Susan Coulter, Debbie Jensen, and Elisa Takeuchi. Without them, there would be no presentation for you today. So let me talk to you about how it all started, the beginning. I was an ISTE member, and I was trying to find a way to easily integrate technology into my classroom. I felt like I was using a lot of technology, but I didn't feel like it was helping the students learn the content that I was trying to teach them. And I came across this book called Learning First, Technology Second. If you're interested in this book, it's the QR code on the left. And it was this framework, the EEE framework. It was a complete book on the different pieces of the framework, and then it had some classroom examples. A second book came out on case studies of this framework that is on the right side. I encourage you to go ahead and scan those QR codes if you're interested in buying the book. So after I found this book, I shared it with my friend Christy Reyes, and we decided that this was a worthy framework for adult education. And since then, we have been working along with the other team members that I told you about to develop this framework, and it is now the framework that is used at OTAN specifically. So let me tell you a little bit about Liz Kolb. First of all, she's not a teacher. She's a clinical psychologist with the University of Michigan. She was doing her PhD research and observing K-12 classrooms, and she realized that most teachers were using technology just for the purposes of engagement and wasn't taking it any further. So it might be a little classroom warmer, like a Kahoot game or something, but then they moved on to pen and paper. She went and looked at other frameworks and found that most of the frameworks were based on teachers and were not based on student learning. And so she created a framework that is easy to use so teachers can easily see what the student is learning and how the technology engages with, enhances, or extends learning outside the classroom. Again, the focus is on learning first and technology second. So today we're going to be talking about the EEE framework. I will go through each of the E's specifically and in detail. We'll talk about engagement, we'll talk about enhancement, we'll talk about extension. I'll show you a rubric, and I have a cheat sheet to share with you. And then at the end, there will be an opportunity for you to pause the video to do a practice activity. So first, let's look at the frameworks that we're most probably all familiar with. So we have the SAMR framework, and if you're familiar with that, just, make a nod or something. It's very linear. It's a ladder. It goes from substitution to redefinition. And for me, learning doesn't happen that way. And it says that if you're on the first two rungs of the ladder, you're in enhancement. And if you're on the second two rungs, you're on transformation. Now, what's nice about this is it's really easy for the teacher to see how they're moving along. But again, the focus is on the teacher rather than the student. Now, on the next side, we have the TPACK model, which is a Venn diagram. And you'll see that the EEE framework uses some of this for its framework, but this is so complicated and so nonlinear that it's really hard to follow. And again, the focus is on the technology instead of the learning. So these frameworks really are either too simplified or too complicated for most teachers to use. Now, I'm going to say if you're a curriculum writer, the TPACK model is really good. But if you're a regular teacher, I think you're going to like this one better. It's just a lot simpler. And it's got the Venn diagram, but it focuses on 3 different parts: engagement, enhancement, and extension. And we're going to go through these in detail in the following slides, but let me just review with you. Engagement is time on task, co-use, and learning goals. Enhancement is added value, scaffolds, and supports, along with differentiation and personalization. Extension is authentic experiences, connecting learning 24/7, and soft skills. So let's start with engagement. The first question to ask yourself is, does the technology allow students to focus on the task of the assignment or activity with less distraction? This is time on task. And I want to say that most technology, well, you will have a yes answer just by using the technology and introducing the technology into the classroom. You will get a yes on this, because most students will spend much more time on the technology doing the tasks than they would with paper and pencil. The second one is to motivate. Does the technology motivate students to start the learning process? This is a type of engagement that the students want to learn because they enjoy the technology so much it motivates them to learn. And the third one is the one that's the most difficult to reach in engagement, is, does the technology cause a shift in the behavior of students where they move from passive to active social learners? This is called co-use or co-engagement. And this is where, if you give the students something that they put earphones on and they listen on the computer and they do the whole thing on the computer, this is not co-use. Co-use requires the students to stop, reflect, talk to somebody, get into groups, and do something with what they've learned. So here are some engagement ideas. Turn and talk, which is where you turn and talk to your partner. A think aloud, modeling, having the students model, paraphrasing, graphic organizers, and predicting. All of these would be engagement. And later on at the end of this workshop, I will give you a cheat sheet that will give you all these activities and ways to use them. The second E is enhancement. So here are the questions for enhancement. Does the technology create scaffolds to make it easier to understand concepts or ideas? Easier. Remember, it's scaffolds to make it easier for the students. The second question, does the technology tool aid students in developing or demonstrating a more sophisticated understanding of the content? So it's more, the students should be able to use the technology to dig deeper into the content than they would with pen and paper. And you could do this by having students research the topic with more than one source on the computer. 3, does the technology create paths for students to demonstrate their understanding of the learning goals in a way they could not do with traditional tools? So this means we need to work beyond the learning that we want, the objective, and that the students can demonstrate in different ways their learning goals. And you could give students choices for this to demonstrate how they understood the content. So some enhancement ideas are turn and talk or turn and teach, where the students change roles with each other. Graphic organizers, exit tickets. I hope you're familiar with them. They allow students to reflect on their learning or tell you what they know and don't know. Sequencing and structuring content. Differentiated instruction, which is much easier these days with AI. You could actually teach students how to take reading materials that they got in class and lower the reading level so that they can understand the content better. And then metacognitive strategies, where the students think and create more cognitive understanding of the material. That would be enhancement. Again, I will have this cheat sheet at the end for you. The third E is extension. So the first question for extension is, does the technology create opportunities for students to learn outside of their typical school day? So when they learn something in school, can they take the same tool and continue learning on their own for their own purposes? Extension question 2, does the technology create a bridge between school learning and everyday life experiences? And this bridge is very important because the students need to know that they can use this tool outside of the classroom. And so I have a story to tell about this. I had a student, I used to use Kahoot all the time. My classroom was the engagement number one, where I brought in the tool and the students were engaged and I was happy. That was the beginning. But I used Kahoot just about every day to start off my class. And one of my students got a Kahoot account. And after she transitioned out of my class, went into community college. And the teacher's first assignment was each student was to teach a grammar point. And it was there were 7 weeks, and they got into groups and they each picked their grammar point. And my student walked into her class that day where she was teaching her grammar point, and she taught it with a Kahoot lesson. And the teacher had never seen Kahoot. It was some years back, had never seen this tool, and was amazed that the student could create such an interactive, engaging lesson, and gave her an A. And the student promptly wrote me an email to tell me that. So that's why I know. So anyhow, that happened from just using it all the time. She learned how to use it. And the last extension question, does the technology allow students to build skills that they can use in their everyday lives? And this is something like teaching them how to use YouTube and research so that they can continue learning on their own outside of the classroom. So some extension ideas are real world issues, which, oh my gosh, we have so many these days. There will be so much that you could do with that. Capture daily experiences. I used to do this a lot in my beginning ESL class by having students take their phone and just take pictures during the day, come back the next evening for class and share the pictures and talk about them. You want to facilitate collaboration, curation skills, which is kind of an organization, putting things into categories, but also organization skills. I think of a computer as an electronic file cabinet. So just teaching students how to use the file cabinet is always good. Design, deliver, and support instruction. We can also do distributed space practice, which is like when you have students create Quizlet cards that they can review vocabulary on a regular basis. Expand online writing and teaching students how to write blogs, emails, those kinds of things. Inquiry-based instruction where students ask questions. Number 8 is requests, where students become teachers and teachers become students. That's always fun. And number 9 is authentic experts. You can bring in people from around the world. I bring in the state parks all the time. They love coming virtually. I bring in the national parks come in. We had our one person come from Yellowstone. It was really fun, talk about the bears. We had NASA come, and we had the people on the space stations talk to my students. So all of this is possible with technology and Zoom. So yes, if you bring in authentic experts, that's a great extension activity. So this is what the rubric looks like, and this is actually an online rubric. Each of those questions that I went over for each of the E's, engagement, enhancement, and extension, they're all here, and then you rate the question by whether it's in there, somewhat in there, or not in there. And then you can add up your score and find out how you do. Let me show you a more visual example of this right here. Think of a traffic light. So if you get 0 to 6 points, your red light, you're probably only reaching engagement. I want to say, before I learned about this framework, that is where I lied. I did not like being in the red. I wanted to be in the yellow. So I worked really hard to add some enhancement and extension into my classroom. Now I want to say that most of my lessons are 7 to 12. If I spend a really long time developing my lesson, I can get into the green light. So that's the goal, but getting from the red to the yellow is a great idea. So let's take a look at a case study. Since you are watching this online, you're probably going to pause the recording to go ahead and analyze this lesson. Let me show you the learning goals and objectives. This is a book club, so students will be able to participate in a book club discussion around a shared reading novel. Students will be active in the conversation, sharing and commenting on their peers' ideas. Students will be able to draw evidence from the novel to support their claims in the discussion. And the tool we're going to use are the students' own cell phones and a QR code scanner or camera on the phone. And we would teach the students how to do that. So let's take a look at what the students are supposed to do. So The students will have already read the novel, hopefully, prior to the book club discussion. 2, students will be placed in groups of 4 or 5. 3, students will have a handful of QR codes in the middle of the table. The QR codes will be generated by the teacher prior to the discussion. Each QR code will have a unique question for discussion. So instead of putting your questions on the page, you put them on the QR code and the students scan them. Each student will take a turn using their phone to scan a QR code. When the question appears on their phone, all the students will discuss the question. 5, the students who scan the QR code will lead the discussion by answering the questions first. Number 6, each student is expected to comment on and answer each question. Number 7, each student is expected to use evidence from the novel to support their views or positions. So go ahead and using the, you can scan the rubric and do it online, and go ahead and decide how many points you would give this activity. Okay, so let's take a look at how you did. So for engagement, yes, it has lots of engagement. I would give it 6 points for engagement. It motivates the students. It gets them going on it. They're shifting in behavior because they're really focused on it and they're talking to each other. However, it does not have any enhancement and it does not have any extension at all. So this would only get a 6. And a 6, unfortunately, is still in the red zone. So let's think about ways that you could actually take this lesson and enhance it and extend it, and then you will have a great lesson. So I want to share with you that we have this cheat sheet. So here is the cheat sheet, and you can see that I have all of the educational practices listed here. And then, for example, let's take a look at opposing viewpoints. So we click here, go to the blog on opposing viewpoints. It will tell you how to do opposing viewpoints and gives you some techniques for doing it. And then you could look and see, okay, opposing viewpoints will be extension, so that if you need extension in your lesson, you can have an opposing viewpoint activity. That might actually be good for the QR code one. And the other thing that's on the page here is the research report on the EEE framework that Christy Reyes and I wrote. And you're welcome to download that for free from ProLiteracy. So there you go. This would be the cheat sheet, the first one I showed you with the techniques and where it sits, and the EEE journal articles. So go ahead and scan those QR codes to get those items. Thank you for coming.